Welcome to Front and Center with Jacquie Jordan.
Hi, Jacquie Jordan. Melissa Joan Hart here. I hear you have a new iHeartRadio podcast, Front and Center. That's awesome. So, here's a toast to all the people making an impact.
This is Front and Center with your host, Jacquie Jordan.
Entertainment and pop culture expert Jacquie Jordan is with us.
Two-time Emmy-nominated Hollywood producer Jacquie Jordan.
We are the show where we talk with the change agents, the storytellers, and the activators from behind the scenes, making impacts. And joining me is co-host Phil Barbb. With show producer Stephanie Cobian.
One of the great things about AI is that it can help us make decisions better.
I think that we've lost trust in a lot of institutions.
Instead of making these snap decisions, let's understand where everybody's coming from.
Hi, I'm Jacquie Jordan on Front and Center, and we are the show where the behind-the-scenes people make impact and take their seat with us front and center. And this is show producer Stephanie Cobian and our co-host, two-time Emmy-nominated television producer Phillip Andrew Barbb. And joining us is my longtime friend, talented writer, talented creative television executive Darren Campo. TV Guestspert Publishing had the privilege of publishing Alex Details Revolution, Alex Details Rebellion, Stingers, and then the paperback version of Alex Details Revolution, as well as the digital book series called Disappearing Spell, which all ties into our conversation about artificial intelligence and technology. Such genius, in my opinion, went into the storytelling of your books. In our last podcast sequence, we spoke with YouTube sensation and star Siraj Raval, who speaks to the benefits of artificial intelligence. And you wrote a fictionalized series about artificial intelligence and how it impacts the world and collective narratives. And some of the storylines you wrote have actually already come true. How do you foresee that? And your stories are kind of a little bit of gloom and doom, which we were talking about with Siraj too, like taking over the world. I mean, your bad guys harvest the energy from the sun.
Yeah, those are the aliens. But my AI is he's a good guy. And you know why he's a good guy in Singers? Because he was sort of hijacked from the government, and he was taught by musical prodigies, and they taught him using fairy tales and songs. So the AI that takes over the world is actually probably the best case scenario. But I also like to put in my books, I like to pit nature against technology. So we often find a theme of like child prodigies, and in this case, they're running software on swarms of insects and using that to fight off giant weapons.
That's for Stingers, and Stephanie and I are laughing because go ahead.
Well, that's one of the things that I love about your books. I don't know why the theme of the child prodigies and like the younger people are always the heroes, which is
right.
is a little different and a little nice. But you also don't believe that technology is necessarily like segregating, I guess, between generations per se.
Well,
so even
I do all my research on the subway, and on the subway, everyone's on the subway. And one of the first things I noticed when Kindle came out, and this has got to be over 10 years ago, was the only people on the subway who had a Kindle were the older people. And I don't know if it's because of the reading or because they were able to adjust the font size or bring all their books with them. But there have been so many instances where I've seen technology adopted. The early adopters were not the generation you think it would have been.
Darren, that makes me laugh. So I know that when me and Jacquie had a conversation about when cell phones kind of hit big, and Phil, you'll relate to, I don't know who you'll relate to, but in my age group, cell phones basically started coming out in high school. Mm-hmm. So me and Jacquie were talking about when cell phones started coming out, touchscreen. I was like in early college and I was like, touchscreen, like that's not going to work. The buttons, there's no buttons. It's not going to work. And Jacquie, her whole thing was
like,
about,
so who's going to put a camera in a telephone? You already have your camera. You already have your phone. Why do you need them together? Like I just could not even foresee why you would take a picture.
I'm always been a late
adopter.
Like always
A
have
late-
been. Like my first cell phone, my dad gave it to me, and all it did was dial 911 and play Snake. Like, that was the only thing
Snake.
it's the only thing it would do.
It really depends on what's put in your hands, because I think a lot of us remember the BlackBerry and how because the BlackBerry was so tactile, it was really created a resistance to the touch screen.
To change.
And I still think the touchscreen doesn't quite work as well as the BlackBerry for typing.
And BlackBerry's gone. Like these technologies, they come and they go.
Yeah.
I had one because I thought it made me more grown up. I thought people would take me more seriously if I had that.
Instead of smoking.
I guess it would be a better habit. In this episode, we're also talking about the impact on multiple generations. As an NYU professor, can you share with us some of the impact this has had on different generations? And what are you seeing with your younger students?
So the fascinating thing about people and my students are 20, 21 years old. They're from all over the world. I teach at NYU, so they're from all over the country, they're from all over the world, and they're not necessarily business students or they're film students, and they're not interested in technology at all. It's sort of second nature to them. What they're really interested in is street smarts. They want to talk to the people who've been out there and done what they've done, and they have a sense that they're going to need to know a lot of stuff to have a really enjoyable and successful life. So I try to give them lots of tips and helpful information beyond what we're just teaching in the classroom.
I think that's so wonderful. You have such a such an access to so many things. You have a background in television, and you are also a professor. How do you see the culmination of all of this affecting the collective narratives, the storytelling? We talk a lot about Joseph Campbell.
Well, I think we're seeing a lot of the same stories being told over and over, and I have a theory that every story and every challenge that we'll face in technology has been in one episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation or another. They've all been in there, whether or not data has a soul, what things you can do on a holodeck, you're having relationships with people that but they're not the real people. All of this stuff has been thought about by science fiction people.
It's got to be like, when is that moment when it stops being science fiction and it just starts being today?
Well, it seems like it's happening now, today.
I went to Michigan State in one of my favorite courses, and I never liked to read, but I took a reading course, and everything that we read was Brave New World, 1984, Frankenstein.
All the dark stuff.
All the dark stuff. And I love that class. And it was all about society and technology.
Yeah.
And it was so fascinating because there are so many of these things that seem like these crazy, futuristic, no way that'll ever happen. And then all of a sudden 2020 is right around the corner. I'm
probably too optimistic because I always write my books with idealized futures where things have all been sorted out and it's a utopia because of technology. And in the past 20 years, we've seen that's not what people have been interested. People have been interested in the post-apocalyptic world. So I'm looking for that shift, and it's happening.
Why do you think that is?
Well, everything that we see on TV and all of entertainment is a balancing for something going on in society, and I think that I think that we've lost trust in a lot of our institutions.
I love that comment. I think that comment's very real.
And for instance, in the Great Recession in 2008, 2009, there was an enormous shift for self-reliance. So whether it was living in a post-apocalyptic world with zombies and having to stay alive, or whether it was pawn shops and shows about treasure in your attic or pickers or things, we saw these really, really deep themes of self-reliance as a result. And so I think that's why you've seen the post-apocalyptic thing be so deeply ingrained in entertainment.
That's a really good point, because that plays on your background as a producer, and obviously Phil's background of all of us as television creatives. But I really like. I like that idea that whole what happened to us with the reception really affected how we wanted how we wanted to be entertained, what we were willing to listen to.
I think one of the first shows that I ever worked on was Undercover Boss.
And that's who doesn't love that show.
And we talk so much about when that show came out at a perfect moment in what people were feeling.
Because nobody trusted the big companies. Yeah,
they were feeling disconnected and they were feeling frustrated. And so this gave them the opposite side of it. And it was really what people were looking for. And so I love the way you say that, just about how our entertainment mirrors or mimics what's
right.
going, what the feeling is.
It is. It's a balancing.
It's so brilliant. Yeah.
It's a balancing, and I think, and now I encourage my students, particularly in the business of producing class. I tell them, we're in the business of mood raising. This is the main thing that everyone is selling, and the main thing that everyone's seeking. So I try to be a bit of a mood raiser myself, but maybe that's why I've always written about more hopeful futures.
Well, I like that, Darren. So one of the things we do on the show is a photospire. So what would be your most recent photospire? Maybe
there are servers and servers of clouds that are just filled with the videos of my dog.
I love those.
Dixie, my
Those are
little
the best.
beagle.
Yeah.
And she's young. Nothing Dixie does is not too cute for me to stop and take a video of it. She always yawns in threes. So I'm like, Dixie, you want to go for a walk? And she's yawning. So lots of yawning Dixies and with her.
She is the cleanest, cutest dog ever. My dogs are not that clean.
We talk about AI and sci-fi and all these things. Like, will people want robot dogs, or would you always want the real thing?
That's a great question. That's a really, really
well.
good question.
I think they would like. I think people like any kind of companionship that makes them feel better about themselves. So whether it's a real dog or a robot dog or both, I have a robot vacuum to clean up after my real dog.
Well, I was just going to wrap out with one of your best stories. Your clone fell in love with a kitten. Your little boy clone character.
So Alex Detail's clone
fell in love with a kitten,
and he goes and his who would be his biological mother decides she's gonna hook him up to universal consciousness and find his soul, and they do that with a kitten.
I love that. Thank you so much, Darren, for joining us here on Front and Center.
Thank you.
Up next, Dr. Joanna Massey, author of You Raised Them, Now You Have to Live With Them in the Workplace, How Millennials and Gen Z Are Changing the Way We Work.
These younger generations, they want to know who you are, what you stand for, and they want to see you support it.
Follow us on Instagram or Facebook at TV Guestbert.
Alex Detail was a child genius who saved the world from the evil harvesters. But a decade later, this mysterious alien force has returned, and Alex is no longer a prodigy. Now, in order to save the world again, he must survive his kidnapping, fight his evil clone, and get his ship to the planet Pluto, where he will uncover the universe's ultimate power. Alex Detail's Revolution, a thrilling new novel by Darren Campo. Buy online or wherever books are sold.